long have you been in the agricultural field?
I've been in the agricultural field for, I guess professionally working, I've been in the agricultural field for about 17 years. But I grew up in an orchard, so I've been around it my whole life.
Do you use synthetic or organic fertilizer?
I use some of both. Mostly synthetic, but I also use organic.
Why is that you use both of them? What does one have that the other one doesn't? Do they like even each other out? Or
Good question.
that?
Synthetic fertilizers are a lot cheaper.
Mm.
They're a lot cheaper and more effective. So the main component of fertilizers that you want is nitrogen. So synthetic fertilizers have a lot more nitrogen, but organic fertilizers produce better long-term benefits for the soil.
Okay.
What brand of fertilizer do you use?
That's a good question. I don't use a specific brand. I use specific fertilizers. So it doesn't really matter where it's made. It has the same properties, same analysis. But most everything I buy comes from Wilbur Ellis, and they formulate their own.
How much is the cost overall?
Cost overall. So if you're talking about like per acre, which is usually how we do it in orcharding, per acre costs for fertilizers all depends on what you're growing. So it can be anywhere from $150 an acre to $500 an acre.
What's the more expensive fruit that you say is more expensive for fertilizer per acre?
Good question. You use a lot more fertilizers on young trees because you want them to grow, and varieties like Granny Smith. You guys know what Granny Smith are?
Yeah.
Yeah, the green apples. They use a lot more on that, and Gala use a lot less fertilizer on Red Delicious and Honeycrisp, so they take less.
What does fertilizer provide that nature can't?
Fertilizer doesn't provide anything that nature can't. Nature can provide everything that the fertilizer does. It's just that the fertilizer allows us to put on exactly what we want at a cheaper price, and it's available quickly.
How has your current method changed from yours in the past, if it has?
Good question. It has changed. The more years that you farm, the more you learn about what you do and what works and what doesn't work. So in years past, we used certain types of fertilizers, and now we know that they leach too quickly into the water. They don't stay in the soil very long, or they're not very available to the plant. And so we changed the types or just the formulations of fertilizers that we use. So we've gotten to learn a lot more about the micronutrients that plants need, and so using more special blends of the micronutrients and really finding out exactly what the plants are needing and feeding them just that, and not just throwing on a general list of nutrients.
What types of laws have changed the type of fertilizer you've used over the years?
Another good question. We used to use the fertilizer that was pretty cheap and had a lot of nitrogen called ammonium nitrate. You can't use that anymore because people use it to build bombs with. Okay? You guys remember the Oklahoma City bombing?
Yeah.
He parked a truck full of ammonium nitrate, and that's what he blew up. So they phased that out, and they use other forms that are a little more expensive, but due to the use of that and the ease of using that and building explosives, that's one that we can't use anymore.
Okay. Did that impact your orchard a lot?
It made things a little bit more expensive.
Yeah, more expensive.
A little bit more expensive, but as usually happens, when a problem like that arises, people find another solution. So it was a little more expensive, but hasn't really affected us.
What do you take in consideration when choosing out fertilizer?
I consider obviously the plant, what we're trying to, the tree that we're trying to grow, the crop load on the tree. That means how much fruit that it's growing. Take into consideration the soil type, type of irrigation, and then of course really take into account what the plant really needs. So you need to do soil analysis, water analysis, and plant tissue analysis to really know. Good questions.
Is there any other questions you guys have? What's your favorite method of, I guess you could say, dispersing your fertilizer? Do you put it directly in the soil, or is it like watered on there?
I do both.
Both?
Yeah. So for young trees, I like to what's called fertigate or drip irrigate with the fertilizer in it. And I like that because it puts it right at the root zone. You know, small trees have their root zone is really small, so you really need to deliver the fertilizer right in a specific place. So I like drip irrigation or fertigation for young trees. Now, when you get the trees get bigger, then their root zone's a lot bigger, and it's really hard to fertigate that kind of situation. So then I like to use just what do they call it? Well, it's a mechanical spreader. It's a mechanical spreader, a broadcast spreader that just spreads it out over the whole orchard row. That way it fertilizes the tree, but then I also fertilize my cover crop, which is in between the trees.
Yeah. Okay. Well, is there any comments, anything you'd like to clarify for us?
I don't think so. Are you guys enjoying this?
Yeah.
Have you learned anything?
Yeah. Pretty interesting.
The only problem is that Jonathan talks way too much.
Okay, so that would be it.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Yep.
I'm going to end this now.